Hi Eddie. I imagine because of injuries and players being away with their countries, you've probably had quite a small squad to work with over the last fortnight, but how has it been for you over the break?
Yeah, exactly that. We've worked with a very small squad, but we've worked well. Majority of players came back yesterday to training, so it's good to see the group back together, and yeah, we're ready for the game.
Do you have a lot of players that I think we know will not be back necessarily anytime soon, but one or two who you're probably hopeful of being able to call upon? Alexander Isak firstly, is he fit for this weekend?
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away. I think we have a majority of players that we've spoke about previously are longer term injuries. We're looking at probably January for a few of them. There's a couple of others that are sooner. We hope that they can be back involved and help us through December.
But it looks like Fabian Schär and Miguel Almiron have been training this week, is that right?
Yeah, Fabi I think was more precautionary rather than any injury. And we saw him yesterday and he seemed good. And Miggy's worked really well since his hamstring.
One player that you won't have this weekend is Lewis Hall because he's on loan from Chelsea and not eligible to play against them. We've seen a little bit more of him in recent weeks. He started a few games. How would you say he's settled in and adapted and worked under you and understood what you want from him?
Yeah, I'd say that understanding is improving all the time. I'd say his commitment to his training and all the work that he's done behind the scenes has been really good. He's a talented young player, for sure. He's got a beautiful left foot and he's got a high level of technical ability. So I think he's a player of really high potential. I think that there's a few of his areas of his game that need smoothing out and improving, but that would be no different to any other young player. But we really do believe in him.
What do you think of Chelsea at the moment? Because it seems as though things might be improving. They had a couple of good results before the international break.
Yeah, very much so. I think firstly they've got a great manager, someone who's been in the Premier League before and has had success developing younger players, and I think he's a really good fit for Chelsea. I think they're improving every week. You can see his stamp on the team, and they've got high-level players. So, yeah, full credit to him and the job that he's doing. And we know this is going to be a real test because I think, as I said, the level of improvement's very quick.
Lastly, how pleased have you been by the way things have gone for you at home this season? Because you've had some big results. The performances have been pretty good generally, haven't they? And that's where the majority of your Premier League points so far have come. Yeah,
our home form has been very strong, with some difficult fixtures as well. I think you look back at our last league game, Arsenal here was a really strong performance, dogged performance, full of determination, discipline, quality, and I think the level of opponent's going to be very similar for us this weekend. So a similar type performance and atmosphere would be more than welcome.
Keith?
Hi Eddie, can I just check on one or two of the players? Kieran Trippier was withdrawn from the England squad for a personal issues. Is he okay?
Kieran's fine. Yeah, he's trained with us since his return from England, so yeah, he's in a good place.
And Sean Longstaff?
Sean would be one of those players that we're analysing and checking. When
you look at the schedule that's to come, 10 games in the next 32 days, you don't have a free midweek between now and the end of the year. Is this as big an examination of your squad as you could get? Yeah, I think when we looked at the season as a whole, as you do, and you plan the whole year, you look at December and go, it's going to be a challenge for us because it's a really demanding month anyway. Take away Champions League involvement, Carabao Cup involvement. So we've given ourselves a really intense month. The unfortunate thing is it's coincided with the absentees that we have, so an even bigger challenge. But that's what it is. We roll with it, we go with it, and we try and make the best of it. And I think the players that we have fit and available are very strong. Certainly, I think the big thing for us is we don't want to see any more injuries. That would be the big thing. It feels like whenever the chips have been down, or whenever your team have maybe been questioned, or people have thought things are turning for the worse, that is when your team have answered. Does it feel like one of those opportunities again? I think every game is an opportunity to answer someone or something or the situation that you're in. Now, I think
the players would have been disappointed by the Bournemouth performance. We all were. It was a really difficult game for us, difficult evening, and then you have 2 weeks to live with that. So I think there's a real determination to try and put that performance to bed. On the back of what was a really good, really, you have to look back and go, it was a really good last block of games for us, because the level of games we were playing was high and there was slight fatigue in the camp towards the end. But now we're starting a fresh group of games and we're looking forward to it.
I'm guessing the medical department didn't have much time off over the international break.
Yeah, and I think it was a busier period for them than we would have hoped at this stage of the season, but they've been working well, the players have been working well, the ones that have been out, and they're determined to try and come back as quickly as possible.
In terms of the meeting, the Premier League meeting during the week, when loans between clubs owned by the same people wasn't blocked, it went, I guess, in Newcastle's favour. What's your view on that as the manager of Newcastle United, given that there are 4 clubs in Saudi owned by PIF, and does that potentially open an avenue for you?
Well, yeah, you say Newcastle's favour. It was a Premier League vote. We're not the only club involved in that vote. I think the majority of clubs in the Premier League own other clubs around the world, so it's not solely on us, yeah. I don't think. Newcastle as a club had a view. We voted our way in the way that we're allowed to, and yeah, the vote came out on the side that it did. I think, just from my dealings with it, we're very relaxed on it. It's not the be-all and end-all for us. We've got a squad that we really like. Now, if we can get players fit before January, the need to recruit will become much less intense for us.
I guess it's difficult to make a decision on January at the moment when you've got those 10 games before the transfer window opens, and as you say, you've got a lot of potential change with your injury situation. Are you just going to have to take it game by game as to what you might need in January?
Certainly we're going to have to be reactive, I think, because as you say, we've got injuries in different areas of the squad. There's not necessarily one area, there's a few areas. So I think that will be a decision made towards the window opening rather than now. I think to sort of formulate your plans now would be a mistake. But of course we're doing the work that we need to do to prepare for that. But that's why I say a lot was given that it was a vote just about us, but we were relaxed about the vote anyway.
And can those plans change depending on whether you're still in Europe or not?
Yeah, we take everything into account. Of course, the amount of games you play can alter your thinking. So yeah, there's a lot to take in.
Thanks, Eddie. Cheers.
Eddie, obviously the vote wasn't just about Newcastle at all, but it does give clubs like Newcastle a bit of an advantage and make it easier perhaps to bring in reinforcements of high calibre, doesn't it?
I think it's the same for everybody. I understand the focus being solely on us, but it's not solely on us. This is a vote for all Premier League clubs. We'll be allowed to potentially recruit from a league like every other Premier League club can as well.
But does it not give Newcastle and the likes of Newcastle an advantage?
There's no advantage in my eyes. We're the same as every other Premier League club.
Okay, Chelsea, brilliant results against City 4-4, but it does mean they do concede goals. Is that something that you've been looking at?
Well, I think, yeah, as much as you can look at that, they've scored 8 goals in 2 games, and I think 8 goals. Okay, Tottenham had that game was well documented what happened in that game, but 8 goals against Tottenham and Manchester City. So I think we're seeing a team who've got outstanding players, an outstanding manager, now beginning to gel and find their form. So for us, yeah, of course we'll look at them, we'll analyse their strengths, any areas that we can potentially hurt them, as we will every opposition.
There's this stat around that when Bruno doesn't play, the team doesn't win, so you've got him back now. Psychologically, does he make a big difference to the squad? Well,
I think he's an outstanding player, and I think you're always going to miss a player of his technical ability, his enthusiasm. I think he is a real catalyst for us with the supporters as well, an energizer with his attitude. You take that player away, and I think there is a big hole. I think that the other added thing for us was we're missing Sandro. We were stretched against Bournemouth, so I think that sort of hole that he left was possibly even bigger for that game. But him coming back into the squad's a massive lift, and we certainly missed him.
And just finally about Sven Botman, I gather he's going to be out for an extended period, but do you actually know yet exactly what his injury is?
Yeah, we know what his injury is. We're unsure how long at this moment in time Sven is going to be out. We're hoping it's not too long. I'm hoping he can rejoin the group pretty quickly. But there is a chance that may not happen, so we're keeping everything crossed.
Can you tell us what the injury is?
No.
Thanks, Doc.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Andy Sixman.
Hi Eddie, I'll keep it short and sharp this morning if you don't like me. How many times have you watched the Bournemouth game back?
I think about 5 times actually, Andy. And every time I've watched it back, I've seen something slightly different. So sometimes you have games like that where you know, obviously we've had a 2-week period, so of course I've not just been doing that. Because you have to look to the future, and of course we've been looking at Chelsea and planning our next group of games. But I think it was a really interesting game for us to review thoroughly, because we may well be in that situation again where we're stretched in terms of personnel. We're playing with potentially a bit of fatigue in our game, and we need to manage ourselves better than we did in that game. So I think analysing that game thoroughly and properly, for if we're in that situation again and what we would do differently, I think is hugely important.
You talked about Alex Isak before. You know, he's had a pretty decent start with Newcastle group, but he's been permeated by these injuries, these little niggles. Do you think we've seen the best of him yet? Has he had a long enough run without an injury for us to see the best of him or not?
Yeah, I think we've seen the best of him, but I think the best is still yet to come. We've seen the best of him currently. I think you go back to games against Tottenham last year where he was irresistible in his form and his movement, his finishing. That game really sticks in my head, but there's been others, real key moments where he's shown his quality. I think he will be disappointed with his last injury because he was on such a good run of form. He was playing with real confidence. He looked really, really fit. And it was an innocuous sort of, I think it was actually him trying to score. His hat-trick goal is where he felt the problem. And so it was a real shame because he was in such good momentum at that stage.
Just one on another player, Joel Linton. It was a busy old international break for him, obviously, with the sending off for Brazil. But away from it, I saw that he'd raised £12,000 for Newcastle West End Food Bank with the sale of those shirts. I just wondered what you thought that says about him as a man, the fact that he's improved so much on the pitch, but off it, he seems to be now this character that is doing other things as well.
Well, that's great to hear. I actually wasn't aware of that, so thanks for letting me know. Joe is a great person. He's a very kind, caring, giving man for someone who's such an intimidating presence on the pitch. I think he's got real good human qualities. It's great to see our players doing that and giving back to the local community. For me, there's no better sight than us using what we have for good causes.
Just finally, talk about home form there. Obviously, it's 4 straight wins, but it's 4 consecutive clean sheets as well. Defence has really come together despite the injuries, haven't they? And there seems to be that solidity that we did see last season.
Yeah, and it's important not to forget that. And amongst everything that's going on, you can very easily lose track of the positive things. And the positive things, even in the last group of games, were there for us to see. As you say, changed back 4. Last year we were able to keep a really solid unit for the majority of the season, which was great. This year it hasn't been the case, but players have come in and really stepped up and showed their worth, and that's great for everyone connected with the club. So we will be potentially stretched again this weekend, but I back the back 4 and the team to defend well.
Simon Rock.
On a similar note, there's not many positives to having a long injury list, but as a group with a strong dynamic anyway, they will know that absences do create opportunities. Has that been, in one respect, a positive element to the way things are at the moment?
Yeah, I think with every difficult situation, you have to see the positives. And it's an opportunity for the group to grow. It's an opportunity for some players that, just so I can think clearly, it's an opportunity for some players that haven't had the football that they want to show their qualities. And then the group looks a lot stronger then when everyone returns. And hopefully that will be the case for us.
Okay. Damien?
Eddie, with Alex, given the other problems you've got, are you going to sort of have to wrap him in cotton wool as you ease him back in? Because he's been so important to you.
Yeah, wrapping in cotton wool is a difficult one with a with a footballer. But yeah, I know what you mean, and I think we have to be sensible with what we ask him to do. He's obviously going to be hugely important for us. He's a huge player for us. He's got that ability to win us games, but we want him on the pitch as much as we can, and to do that, we're going to have to be careful.
And the other thing, just obviously since we last saw the Everton punishment FFP, does this show the wisdom of your approach and show how important it's going to be to maintain that in the future as well?
Yeah, I think financial fair play has been a difficult one for everyone to, myself included, get our heads round as a football club, because it's come in and every club has to work towards it within the guidelines. Certainly not my decisions in terms of sort of what happens financially. That's the club, and I think the club have managed the situation very well under pressure to invest and to improve the squad and to try and move things forward as quickly as possible. The Everton situation came out of the blue, I think, for all of us in terms of the verdict, and they've got an incredible manager there who's done brilliant things previously in difficult circumstances, and I back Sean to do the same again.
Eddie, I don't know if you saw this week, the Daily Mail launched a campaign to stop the abuse of referees. What is your thought on that as a subject? Does more need to be done? You're someone who I've never actually seen abuse a referee, but what is your take on that whole subject?
I think if you asked every manager in the cold light of day what they thought, I think they'd all say the same thing, that we don't want to see abuse for referees. We want to see a game that has the referee held in respect and treated accordingly. I think the other side of that then comes the emotion and the pressure, and the situations we're put in as managers is extreme, and then sometimes you see reactions, but really based on emotion and the situation. But I do think it's something that we all need to work together to try and improve for the image of the game, for everyone that's watching the product. I'd love to see that improve globally, and I think only possibly restrictions being brought in and punishments maybe being more severe is the only way to go to try and improve that. But I do think there is a willing from everyone involved in the game to do that. I don't see the opposite. It's just creating the culture that we need to do.
Yeah. Away from that, let's check on Callum. What are you expecting in terms of when he'll be back?
Slightly unclear at the minute.
Okay, we'll work through as many as you can before embargo. Scott?
Eddie, when you talk about the transfer window in January, there's two kind of different things you can do in a transfer window. You can build on a squad that you've already got, probably with half an eye on the future, which is maybe to a degree what happened here in the summer, or you use it to effectively put out fires and plug gaps. I mean, is it safe to say that we're in the position where the focus is going to have to be the latter, that it's going to be hard to make kind of strategic long-term signings in January because you've got so many short-term issues that might need addressing?
I don't know, Scott, to be honest, as I sit here now, because I think the squad could look very different on January the 1st. The squad could look a lot stronger. I say could because we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks. I'm against making short-term decisions unless we absolutely have to. Last January we invested in Anthony Gordon, who we really believed in could be a top talent here for many, many years, and he was the right personality at that time to improve the squad. I think they're the types of signings we want to be making, but as I say, sat here now, I've got no idea if we'll be in a position to do that.
Simon first?
I used to check when you say you watched the Bournemouth game 5 times, is that tips or the full thing?
Oh God, I wish I hadn't answered that question now. That's your fault. No, it's the whole game, but it's done with a view to me trying to find something else. So it won't be just me randomly watching the game. I'll watch the game again. It's because I want to see this area of our game and analyse it properly, and then obviously then try and find a way to make it better.
And how did it feel stewing on that for like 2 weeks? Because after 18 months of like kind of progress, it felt like a jolt, and that you maybe had to have a little rethink about the style of play and how you control games without putting so much energy into it.
Yeah, personally, I don't think it was so much that, and that's why it's the beauty of watching it back again. We just fell down on a lot of our normal things that we do really well, we didn't deliver for whatever reason. So that's why I think it's a useful thing to analyse it in the way that we did. Yeah, I mean, whether it's a jolt to our progress, I don't know. It's one game, and I think there are reasons for it. So certainly we're not overreacting internally.
Did you feel better when you found the reasons yourself after the game?
I think you always feel better once you have clarity in your thinking, and then you can look to the future. And we're very much looking to the future now, not backwards.
Lee Ryder?
Eddie, there was some comments from Steve Bruce about Sean Longstaff, about his maturity levels when he was here. I know you've always got on really well with Sean Longstaff, but you've never had any sort of issues on that score with Sean. He's really come on leaps and bounds, hasn't he?
Yeah, I'm unaware of any comments, so it's difficult for me to comment on them. No, Sean's been outstanding for us. I've really got on with him on a personal level very well. I found him very, very passionate about Newcastle. That's one of the things I love about him. I think if we have an under-21 game next door, any time of day, he'll be there and he'll be supporting the young players coming through. I love that sort of aspect of his personality, that he cares about Newcastle, and he hasn't forgotten his roots either. He's forgotten where he came from and he wants to give back. So, no, top draw.
And the fact you handed him the captain's armband recently, I guess that says it all.
Yeah, I think he's a leader to come. I really do. I believe he's got a really, really nice way of speaking to the players in an authoritative way, really high in intelligence levels, and he can articulate himself really well within the group. So I think there's a leader in there, and we're just trying to encourage that, and hopefully in years to come we'll see that.
And obviously you've got the PSG game coming up on the back of it. How's the sort of management of the squad? I mean, if some players aren't back for this game, they might be back in France. Is that fair to say?
I wish it was fair to say, Lee. I'm unsure on that at the moment. I think that game might come round too quickly for anyone to rejoin the group that will be playing on Saturday.
Dominic and then Jordan.
With no Lewis Howe, does that leave Tino Livramento sort of poised to make his first Premier League start this weekend?
Well, he'd be one of the options that we have. We have a couple actually in the full-back areas. That's an area that we are blessed with a few options, which is really good to have from my perspective.
You spoke about new signings, sort of building them up to 90 minutes. He's played 3 90-minute games for you already in the cup competitions. How pleased have you been with what he's delivered so far in the sort of fitness level?
With Tino?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, very good. Fitness-wise, I think he's looked strong. Everyone's seen he's performed really, really well when he's played. And yeah, I'm delighted with his progress.
Jordan.
Just going back to January, you mentioned FFP earlier. If you need to strengthen in January, do you feel like you've got the funds there to go and do it? Or do you expect to have the funds there to go and do it?
They're not conversations we've had at this moment in time, as I said, because everything is so unclear towards the month. I think certainly if you rewind a few months, there wouldn't have been any desire, I think, from anyone at the club to invest in January. So this would be something that would be sort of reactive to our situation.
And just on the constant theme of injuries, Harvey Barnes, you mentioned him potentially being back quite close after coming back after the international break. Is any update on him and when he may be fit to return?
Yeah, I'd still say he's on track from the original injury. I think the original injury was slightly unclear on what the timescale was at the start of the injury, but he's on track for that. But that won't be sort of within 2 or 3 games of the break. That'll be slightly further in.
Same embargo lifted, Martin?
During conversations here slightly, going back to Craig's point, is it important managers stay calm after games and resist the temptation to tear into the ER or referees?
I think as I said, every manager would probably say yes. But then you have to deal with the emotion and you have to deal with the pressure that we're all under, and we're human beings. So, of course, if you have to interview managers 2-3 days after the game, you would never get the outburst that you get. But I understand it because I feel exactly the same as every other manager at times where you're emotional, you're frustrated, and immediately after the game it's so difficult to stay calm.
For clarity on the Premier League board, if you need to, or if you want to, are you prepared to sign players from Saudi
Again, it's not even in our thoughts at this moment in time. As I said at the start of the season, January was not a window that we were looking to invest in. Now, it would only be reaction to the injuries that we have, whether we will need to recruit, because the majority of our players will hopefully be back in January. This moment in time, we don't know.
And on Nick Pope, who hasn't conceded a goal at home in the Premier League since I think August, do you think he gets the respect he deserves, and is he disappointed to be out of the England frame?
Well, in terms of the respect he deserves, he certainly gets it internally. I don't know, you would know more than me than sort of the wider media respect, but Nick is someone that commands respect here with how he works, with how he trains, with the performances that he's given since he's been at the football club. He's been magnificent. As a goalkeeper, I think he's unquestioned. England, that's a difficult one. Only Nick could really comment on how he feels about that situation, but I'm sure, for me, he's one of the very best in the country, so I'm sure he's very close to earning that recall back.
Nick will be our nominated player in Paris on Monday. So, Chris?
Morning, Eddie.
Hi, Chris.
Obviously, Lewis Miley made his full Premier League debut at Bournemouth. I know you've kept him involved since pre-season, you really liked him, but have you had to almost accelerate how you use him given the injury situation? How do you think he's reacted to the extra minutes?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation really, because he just returned to training from glandular fever, which people that have had that illness will know that's a very, very difficult one to come back and feel at your very best straight away. So he played at Bournemouth with limited training behind him, but I thought he did very well, and I thought he showed really good maturity in what was a really difficult team performance. I thought he kept his calm and did his job very well. So I was really pleased with him in that moment, and I'd say the last 2 weeks he's begun to get back to his very best levels physically. So that's been really good to see. We believe he's a top talent. We believe he could have an amazing career here. But certainly he's still learning at the age that he is. He's getting to grips with the Premier League, the speed of the Premier League. But he's got a great mentality, and he's very level-headed and very calm.
And do you actually see him as part of that first team group fully now?
Oh, we always have done from this season. I think he was part of our group. He was never going to go anywhere. We wanted 6 really good centre midfielders, knowing that we play 3, and at any time we could shuffle our pack. Now those numbers have diminished slightly for different reasons, but he's an important part of what we're doing.
Just in the summer, well, I know one of the key things you were looking at, like Lewis Hall and others, was versatility that the players would bring. Obviously, you played Anthony Gordon through the middle, other players have played several positions. Has that versatility been even more key than you would have necessarily expected for the time?
Yeah, certainly the versatility is important, but we didn't necessarily want to be playing players in different positions to their accustomed normal roles, but sometimes that is what you have to do. And then you need the options to do that, and certainly some players have played in slightly different roles. I think they've done well. Their attitude to it, most importantly, has been very good. So yeah, we might need that again in this month.
Kieran and then Oscar to finish. Kieran?
There are a few owners who own different clubs. That's the focus around Newcastle on the Premier League club. That irritates you.
Nothing irritates me, Kieran. I found it a bit strange that the focus has been solely on us, and obviously every club has a right to vote how they want to vote, and it hasn't gone through, so it's not just about us. Sandra's been training very well, actually, yeah, very well, which makes it even more frustrating for us that we can't use him, especially in this moment where we would really need him. And he's a player training, he's fit, and he's looked really, really good. But, you know, despite the frustration, obvious frustration for me, I'm very pleased that he's training at that level, and that's a hallmark of his character, because it's very difficult when you've got such a long period out to keep your focus day to day and do your job as well as you can, and he's certainly done that.
Is he coping so far?
Yeah, so far I'd say he's coping very well with his situation, in the fact that he's doing extra work, he's trying to improve himself despite the fact he can't play for such a long time. You wouldn't know from our training sessions that he's unavailable to play, and this is probably the best we've seen him in training. But I think that's natural, because he's getting used to his surroundings, he's comfortable now. It's the best we've seen him train, so no, I'd love to see him when he comes back into the team, because I think he'd be a huge player for us.
Okay, Oscar to finish.
Eddie, when you compare the strengths of Isak and Wilson up front, what does Alex bring that maybe Callum doesn't?
I don't know if there's anything that he can do that Callum can't. But they are different players. But I do think they've both got core characteristics that we look for. So they're both quick, and they both work hard in and out of possession. They both score goals, and they're both usually in the right areas to score goals. So I think that they're sort of the core characteristics that we really like about both players. I think Alex probably naturally wants to come into slightly deeper areas and rotate his position more rather than being a fixed nine. And that movement gives us different options when we play with Alex in the team. But they're both outstanding number nines, and yeah, we need them both back fit if possible.
And himself knowing he's going to be the main man over this period, do you sense that he's ready to seize that opportunity?
Yeah, Alex is a very focused individual. He is very calm in his work. He very rarely shows it sort of too many outward expressions of happiness or anger or disappointment. So he's very level and consistent. But I think he's fiercely determined to do well, and I think that's a great characteristic to have. He's not fazed when he does well or over the top, or the same when he's maybe not performed to his best levels. But I see a real camaraderie, I've said before, between him and Callum. They're both pushing each other, and so I think Alex will miss Callum and vice versa when they're not fit. But we certainly back Alex as our striker for now.
I think Alex has learned a lot from Callum over the time together, especially in the 6-yard box, especially maybe.
I don't know about that so much. I think they've pushed each other. I think there's a very healthy respect. I've said this before. I think they both look at each other and go, he's a top player. And that can only then help inspire the other one to know that I have to perform well. Because if I don't, he's going to take my shirt.